Discovered 7 Sinister Rules of Survival to keep you alive in a haunted, cursed world. Alice couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching her. The quiet suburb of Maplewood, usually a haven of comfort and routine, felt heavy and dark under the weight of the unknown. The day had begun like any other, but the discovery of an old book at a garage sale would ignite a series of events that would turn her world upside down. 7 Sinister Rules of Survival was the title, its letters worn and faded. It sat among mugs and clothes, begging her to take it home. Ethan had cheered when she brought it in, flipping through its pages with childlike enthusiasm. But as night fell, Alice couldn't shake the creeping dread. Ethan's laughter echoed from the hallway, a sound that felt wrong, twisted. She peeked into his room, finding him speaking animatedly to empty corners, his otherworldly friends hiding in the shadows. The candlelight flickered nervously as she felt the temperature drop, almost palpably, as if something malicious had settled in the air. Days turned into weeks, each a blur of anxiety and work shifts at the diner, where tired souls gathered for late-night coffee. Neighborhood whispers turned sinister, talking of Dan, the charming councilman who had been visiting homes in the cul-de-sac at odd hours. "He has that look," one neighbor said, eyes darting around. "The one that feels like he is watching you, always." And then the calls began. The first night, Alice dismissed it as a prank. But the voice that slithered through the phone had scratched at her sanity, each word taunting her about the book. "You should have never found it, now you can't escape." Each call made her pulse race, her palms sweaty with fear. Shadows danced outside her window like phantoms, flickering under the streetlight. What was happening? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. It was a night thick with shadows when Ethan disappeared. The world spun as dread clutched Alice's heart. She called for him frantically, but no answer came. The neighbors' doors, once friendly, closed tightly, their faces blank, eyes avoiding hers. What had she overlooked? The whispers surrounding Dan grew into full-blown hysteria. The town's history peeled back, revealing a tapestry of dark rituals. The very history she had trusted now felt like a noose tightening around her neck. Beneath the surface of Maplewood, a tide of dread flowed. Alice's instincts screamed, urging her to act, to confront Dan and the others, but doubt clawed at her. Were they truly the monsters hiding in plain sight? She felt the icy breath of wind on her neck and spun around, the whispers of children weaved into a terrifying song. Time slipped through her fingers. As she put the pieces of the past together, she felt the shadows closing around her, each revelation wrapping her tighter in the web of betrayal. And just as the clock struck midnight, she realized every joyful laugh was a chime of deceit, every light a lure into the darkness. What had she unleashed? Could she ever escape this cursed world? With fear tightening in her throat, Alice's heart pounded, drowning in despair. Her fragile peace shattered, replaced by the haunting question, what had she really awakened in Maplewood? The hours stretched on painfully, a black hole of time swirling with confusion and panic. Alice could feel the darkness seep into her bones, the edges of her vision narrowing as dread unfurled inside her like creeping ivy. She stumbled into the living room, her heart echoing like a drumbeat in the oppressive silence. Ethan's absence cut deeper than any sharp object. It was a raw ache, a gaping wound in this twisted nightmare. "Please come back," she whispered into the shadows, her voice quaking. Her hands fumbled through the scattered papers on the coffee table, hunting for the book. She needed answers, needed to know what she had unleashed upon them. As she grabbed the worn volume, the candles flickered wildly, casting mocking shapes against the walls. The ghostly patterns seemed almost alive, taunting her with secret meanings she couldn't decipher. Alice flipped to the first page, scanning for anything that could help her. The air thickened with tension, a palpable force that constricted her throat. There, half hidden in the margins, a phrase caught her eye, "He who seeks shall find, but beware of what lies beyond the veil." Chills coursed through her as if ice water had been poured over her. What veil was the book speaking of? And what had she sought that could possibly lead to this? A sudden sound broke the silence, a soft gully, like a child's giggle echoing under the floorboards. Alice froze, every instinct screaming at her to run. But another sound followed, layered beneath the laughter, her son's voice, muffled and distorted, calling out to her. "Mom, Alice, Ethan!" she cried, her heart racing as she dashed toward the hallway leading to the basement. The laughter twisted into shrill wails, a cacophony that pressed down on her. Each step felt weighted, as if unseen fingers were gripping her ankles, trying to drag her into the darkness. The basement door creaked ominously as she pushed it open. The chill from the stairs rushed up, wrapping her in a shroud of dread. Flickering lights barely illuminated the clutter stacked around her, casting eerie shadows that danced mockingly. "Ethan!" she shouted, her voice piercing the oppressive gloom. Silence answered back, a pause so thick it could smother her. Alice's heart pounded as she explored the room, her back prickling with the sensation of being watched. Was Dan responsible for this? Had he taken her son? Every instinct screamed for her to flee, to escape whatever trap was being woven around them. But something deeper pulled her in, a mother's instinct to protect. And then she saw a flicker of movement through the cracks of an old wooden box in the corner. She approached cautiously, her breath catching in her throat. "Ethan? Are you in there?" As she leaned in closer, the lid of the box sprang open with a loud creak, revealing nothing but darkness inside. A gust of wind whirled around her, extinguishing the light in the room. In that instant, everything shifted, and the laughter returned. This time it wasn't just the echoes of her son, it was the sound of countless voices, filling the air with their twisted glee. Panic surged as she stumbled back, the book slipping from her grasp. It hit the ground with a thud, and abruptly, the voices grew silent. In the eerie quiet, Alice realized she wasn't alone. A figure emerged from the shadows, a familiar silhouette. It grinned wide in the dark, revealing teeth that glinted like knives. "Welcome home, Alice," it hissed, and her heart plummeted. As realization washed over her, she couldn't breathe. She was trapped in a web woven long before she even opened that cursed book. What had she awakened? The walls seemed to close in around her, and she wondered with terror evident in her wild eyes, would she ever escape the nightmare? Before she could react, the figure lunged toward her. The world spun into chaos as darkness engulfed her. The last thing she heard was that horrifying laughter echoing all around her, closing in with the promise of unspeakable horrors to come. The chaos swallowed her whole. Alice's world dissolved into black, her heart hammering in her chest. She felt weightless, adrift in that dreadful void. Desperation clawed at her skin. Sudden warmth flooded her senses, pulling her from the brink. A flicker of light appeared, vague and twisted, illuminating a grotesque scene. She was back in the basement, but everything felt wrong. The air was thick with a rancid stench, a putrid mix of decay and mold. Shadows coiled around her like serpents, eager to strike. Mom, Ethan's voice, the familiar sound cut through her like a knife. "Ethan!" she cried, spinning around. Panic surged as she spotted him, a mere silhouette standing at the far side of the basement. The coldness seeped into her bones as she recognized the fragile figure hunched against the wall. "Stay there!" she shouted, fighting against the heavy air. But he didn't move. Instead, something else stirred, an unholy presence loomed over him, shifting and slithering like smoke. The shadows roared to life, morphing into grotesque shapes that warped around her child. In horror, Alice realized the figure looming over Ethan was the same wretched silhouette that had grinned at her moments ago. "Let him go!" she yelled, the command bursting from her lips, urgency filling her veins. A chuckle peppered with malice floated through the dank air, chilling her. "He needs to learn," the figure rasped, its voice a blend of familiar warmth and twisted mockery. Alice's heart raced. The darkness seemed closer now, mendacious and eager. "No! You won't take him!" Desperation turned her voice hoarse as she squeezed her eyes shut, willing her strength to fight through the encroaching despair. With a primal scream, she lunged forward. Light erupted from her palms, a radiant bloom of hope that stained the darkness if only for a moment. The shadows recoiled, shrieking and twisting as the figure hissed, "No! You're not ready for this." But Alice didn't stop. She crashed into the presence engulfing Ethan, shoving it back with all her might. The darkness shrieked as she reached for her son. He felt cold, so impossibly cold. "Ethan, wake up!" She gripped his shoulders, shaking him. A flicker of recognition lit in his darkened eyes. "Mom, come on!" But before they could escape, the shadows lunged again, reaching out with clawed fingers, dragging Alice into a frigid embrace. The air grew heavier, suffocating. "There are rules," the figure snarled, its voice echoing as if multiple entities spoke at once. "Rules you must follow to survive." The laughter echoed anew, rising like a tidal wave, crashing over everything. Alice's mind raced. What rules? What game was this entity playing? As she fought against the cold grip around her, she felt Ethan's hand slip from hers. Panic washed over her, threatening to drown her. "Ethan! No!" In that instant, darkness enveloped them both, tearing them apart, each scream of hers swallowed by the void, her soul grasping desperately for the faintest signs of hope. Then, just as abruptly, everything stilled. She was alone again, gasping for air in silence thick enough to slice. Ethereal whispers brushed past her, chilling her to the core. Survival begins with understanding. Chills crept down her spine as she opened her eyes to find herself back in the living room, the book lying innocently before her. The echoes of Ethan's voice lingered, his cries twisted into haunting reminders, yet there was no sign of him. Clutching the book close, Alice felt an urge to read, to understand more about these sinister rules. But the shadows flickered in her periphery, watching, waiting. She sensed a looming presence, a whisper in the dim corners of her mind. "They've already begun." She steeled herself. The hunt was far from over, a dangerous game where each rule she discovered could either bind her tighter to the nightmare or be the key to salvation. What were the 7 sinister rules she needed to know? And would she find them in time, before something worse emerged from the shadows? Alice steadied her breath, heart racing with dread. The book taunted her from the coffee table, its pages whispering secrets. What sinister truths lay hidden within those words? She reached out, fingers trembling as they grazed the textured cover. Time felt suspended, the air thick with anticipation and fear. With a shudder, she opened the book. A musty smell wafted up, as if the pages had absorbed the darkness that surrounded her. The words seemed to shimmer, lifting off the pages with an almost malevolent intent. Rule 1, trust no one. Alice's skin prickled. The laughter echoed again, a merciless reminder that she was not alone. The shadows flickered, twisting into shapes that resembled faces she recognized. Friends, family, people she loved. The vision warped and twisted, their expressions warped into mockery. Lies. She muttered, slamming the book shut. Her pulse thundered in her ears. How could she trust anything in this wretched place? "Do you think you're safe, Alice?" The voice dripped with sickening sweetness, a twisted amalgamation of her mother and a stranger. It oozed into her mind like sticky syrup. "No!" she yelled, forcing herself to stand. She needed answers. She needed to drag the truth into the light, no matter how horrifying. With shaking hands, she reopened the book. The words danced before her eyes, scrambling into an incomprehensible jumble. She bit her lip, fighting against the onslaught of dark thoughts trying to smother her. Rule 2, fear is your only friend. Alice shook her head furiously. Fear? How could fear be a friend? It was suffocating, gripping her throat like a vice. She felt it rising in waves, a tidal surge that threatened to swallow her whole. But then she remembered Ethan, the way his tiny hand felt slipping from hers. Her breath caught. Fear was powerful, but it could also be a weapon. She would wield it, not let it wield her. "Stay away," she hissed, clutching the book to her chest. The shadows curled closer, whispering her name, taunting her. Rule 3, every choice has a price. A sickening knot twisted in her stomach. Choices. She thought of the choices she had made, how each one spiraled into this hell. This was not a game, it was a trap. A sudden crash echoed from the hallway. Her instincts screamed at her, urging her to flee, but she couldn't. Something was drawing her toward the sound, an undeniable pull, like a string tied to her chest. "Ethan!" she gasped, rushing toward the noise. The shadows lunged, shrieking and thrashing as she barreled through, arms outstretched. An icy finger grazed her arm, leaving a trail of ice that made her skin crawl. The hallway was dim, the air thick with tension. Fear crept back, wrapping itself around her throat like a noose. She stumbled, catching herself against the wall. Rule 4, the darkness knows your fears. Alice's heart dropped. The darkness wasn't just an absence of light, it was alive, sentient. It assimilated her fears, growing stronger with each desperate breath. She advanced, every step echoing in the silence. Her mind raced. What was waiting for her at the end of this path? Or perhaps it was already here, hiding in plain sight. Suddenly, a flicker of light broke through the oppressive gloom. A door swung ajar, beckoning her forward. "Choose wisely, Alice," the voice cooed, every word dripping with malice. She hesitated on the threshold, knowing each choice she made felt like a descent into madness, but it was too late for second-guessing now. In that moment, the shadows surged behind her, eager to consume. Rule 5, only a light can dispel the darkness. Alice inhaled sharply, thoughts blurring. She had to remember these rules, had to learn them by heart if she was going to survive. Then the door creaked wider, an invitation masked by a shroud of danger. Alice squared her shoulders, knowing she had to step forward. There was no turning back. Would she find Ethan? Or was something waiting within those walls, something worse than she could imagine? Her heart raced, a drumbeat urging her onward into the unknown. As the shadows danced hungrily behind her, Alice whispered a silent promise, "I will find you, Ethan." And with that, she stepped through the door, ready to face whatever horrors lay beyond, as the whispered rules echoed ominously in her mind. The door slammed shut behind Alice, cutting off the sinister laughter and the grasping shadows. She stood in a dimly lit room, the air oppressive and heavy. Dust hung in the air like spirits unwilling to move on, and layers of grime coated everything, whispering of abandonment and neglect. A single bulb flickered on the ceiling, casting an eerie yellow glow that barely pierced the edges of the room. Walls lined with peeling wallpaper revealed dark stains seeping through, a haunting reminder of what once transpired here. She took a trembling step forward, squeezing the book tightly against her chest, feeling its weight like a stone in her hands. "Ethan," she breathed, her voice an echo in the stillness. The room was empty. Empty except for a large, wooden table in the center, its surface marred by deep scratches. A chill slithered down Alice's spine as she approached the table, running her fingers over the rough grain, feeling the ridges beneath her fingertips. What secrets lay hidden beneath the dust? As she leaned closer, a reflection caught her eye. At the far end of the table, a shard of broken glass glimmered in the faint light. It was a part of a shattered mirror, its cracked surface distorting her image into something grotesque and unfamiliar. Rule 6, mirrors reflect more than just your image, she remembered, the cold realization settling over her like a shroud. What had been trapped within that mirror? Was it a reflection of her fears or something far more sinister waiting to pounce? Suddenly, a sound sliced through the silence, a soft whimper, small and desperate. Alice's heart leapt in her chest as she turned, searching the room. "Ethan?" she called, her voice trembling. A low sob echoed from a dark corner, barely audible but undeniably there. The shadow seemed to pulse, alive with movement, as she edged closer, light flickering precariously above. She squinted into the gloom, hoping to catch a glimpse of him, praying it was indeed him, alive and well. As she reached the corner, she felt it, a chill skated down her spine as the darkness thickened, swirling as if it had materialized into something sentient. "Ethan!" Still, there was only silence, and then, the sharp intake of breath behind her. It froze Alice in her tracks, a shadow shifting in her periphery. She turned slowly, heart hammering against her ribs, the breath hitching in her throat. "Turn back," the voice rasped, a cruel mix of her friend's and her own. "There is nothing for you here, no," she shouted defiantly, shaking her head. "I won't let you take him." The shadows lunged, swirling around her waist, grabbing at her legs, pulling her down. Panic clawed and twisted inside her, stomach knotting as if some unseen hand were crushing her. She shoved against the dark tendrils, breathing heavily, her body vibrating with fear, desperate to regain control. Rule 7, only the truth will set you free, she gasped, eyes darting around, hunting for a gleam of light. The truth, she realized, might just be the key to breaking free from this nightmare. Alice thought of Ethan, his smile, the warmth of his small hand in hers, the last thing she wanted to lose. With a surge of determination, she reached for the piece of mirror, gripping it tightly in her palm, and turned to face the darkness. "I see you," she roared. "You can't take him from me." The shadows recoiled, hissing, as if her defiance struck them. The mirror reflected not only her horrified face but also countless fleeting images, moments stolen from her life, each a choice weighed heavily on her soul. "Every choice has a price," she whispered. Stepping forward, Alice raised the shard, glinting in the failing light. The shadowed figure hesitated, uncertainty flooding its eyes. Did it fear what it couldn't control? But just as hope ignited inside her, the air thickened again with dread, and the walls seemed to close in. Would she find Ethan lurking in this darkness, or would she be swallowed by the very shadows she sought to confront? With the weight of the truth pressing heavily on her heart, Alice readied herself for the unknown, knowing that only one choice remained ahead. Lies her final test, as whispers of betrayal called from every corner, daring her to listen. Alice's breath quickened as the shadows writhed at her feet, seemingly alive, mocking her resolve. The air thickened around her, as though the darkness itself conspired to envelop her in an icy embrace. "Only the truth will set you free," she repeated, focusing on the glint of glass in her hand. It was wicked yet somehow comforting, a tool of both reflection and potential weapon, but which path did it lean toward? There was barely room for thought as the air buzzed with anticipation, lingering threats slithering close. "Ethan!" she cried again, two syllables echoing desperately in the stale silence. Beneath the cacophony of her thoughts, a singular notion emerged, a need to break the spell binding her, to unlock whatever horrible resentment held Ethan captive in this unforgiving realm. The shadows clawed at her ankles, dragging her closer to the ground. Each tug felt stronger than the last, nearly pulling her into the very abyss she fought against. She gritted her teeth, forcing her feet to stay planted. "Stop it!" she screamed, her voice almost drowned out by the murmurs swirling around her. "I won to let you win." As if conceding to her defiance, the shadows hesitated, whispering now, twisting through the air in tendrils of darkness that danced like a serpent. Alice braced herself for the next onslaught, gripping the mirror more tightly. Each crack reflected not just her fright but locked away memories, moments of innocence that had been tainted by choices she couldn't erase. "Every choice has a price," she murmured, realizing how many times she had turned away from Ethan in life, how easy it was to turn a blind eye to shadows lurking in the corners. Those choices were the very chains that bound them together, still, even separated by this cursed world. The flickering bulb above droned in protest, and something shifted dramatically behind Alice. She spun around, heart racing in disbelief. A figure ethereal and twisted broke through the veil of darkness, its edges bleeding into the shadows. "Is that you?" Alice stammered, craning her neck to see properly. No matter how fervently she searched the contours of that wraith-like entity, it only drove her panic deeper. "Help me," it pleaded, voice a fragmented echo. "Was it Ethan? Tell me what to do," she shouted, waving the mirror shard. The entity became fluid, morphing and convulsing before her eyes, its face flickering with hope and despair. "Is that genuinely you?" Safe behind the mirror." The words clawed their way out, layered with urgency. In a rush of instinct, Alice delved into her memories of Ethan, a river of emotions flooding back. All those nights spent reading together, the laughter, the warmth of friendship enveloping them. A type of bond that even shadows couldn't fracture, she thought. "Then I need to face the truth," she yelled defiantly at the shadow figure, feeling a surge of courage. "Help me. Where do I go?" The creature's form trembled, fissures spreading across its surface like cracks in porcelain. "Only through." With a strange resolve, Alice moved toward the shattered mirror shard, emboldened by a growing sense of destiny. She knew she would have to confront her choices, every last one, and the darkness that fed on them. As her hand drew closer to the shard, the shadows pulsed with desperation, and she glimpsed thoughts and memories from every dark corner of her mind. Find what lies beneath, a whispered voice beckoned, chilling her to the bone. But the shadows recoiled, and the room slammed with overwhelming dread. Ethan! She hollered once more, feeling the world teeter at the brink. Each moment felt stretched, the walls worming in on her as the echo of the unknown surrounded her like a shroud. And then she realized the way out was through the pain, through the sacrifice, through the core of her deepest fears. Darkness pressed tighter, and she felt it, a tremor consuming her, somewhere in the corners of the room. What lurked there? She spoke into the void, "What do you want from me?" And the shadows hissed back, "Truth demands its due." Alice, with one frightened flicker of courage, she drove the shard toward the heart of the darkened mass, breath held tight, knowing she had unleashed something that could change everything. Is this what she needed? A confrontation with the horrors of her past? As the mirror's reflection shimmered with a different kind of truth, Alice stopped, staring hard into its depths. What would emerge if she stepped through? What waited for her on the other side of fear? Uncertainty clawed at her mind as a slithering sound grew louder. Alice's heart thudded against her ribcage, her next move determining not just her fate, but Ethan's what lay beyond the veil? Alice thrust the shard forward, feeling the cool metal scrape against the shifting darkness. The mirror's surface pulsed, rippling like disturbed water. She could see her reflection, a pale, wide-eyed version of herself staring back, tinged with fear and determination. "Don't let go," she whispered to herself, the words almost a prayer. As she leaned closer, the chaotic whispers grew louder. They grew coherent, murmurs of guilt and betrayal, her doubts echoing fiercely. "You left him," they hissed, embedding thorns of shame deeper into her heart. "You turned your back." "No." She stomped her foot, anchoring herself against the tide of negativity that pulled at her. "I can bring him back. I can fix this." The room trembled, walls groaning under the weight of her defiance. Shadows twirled in frenzy as if agitated by her insistence, revealing fleeting glimpses of nightmares, dark alleys, abandoned houses, scenes painted with loss. Each snapshot sent shivers writhing through Alice, every sight a reminder of choices made, lives irreparably changed. "Find the truth," she repeated, the words burning in her throat. The shard throbbed in her hands, as though resonating with her tumultuous heartbeat. In that instant, the mirror's reflection warped. Ethereal images flickered, swirling in desperate dance like a haunting carousel. Alice pressed forward, entranced, searching for snippets of Ethan amidst the insanity. She needed to see him clearly. "Ethan! Show me!" The shadows surged, erupting in angry tendrils that darted at her neck, twisting around her like serpents. They whispered savagely, "You think you can change anything? You think you're the hero? No, I just want to understand." Her words trembled, barely above a murmur. The shadows slackened their grip, intrigued by her honesty, although it came from the depths of despair. With a deep breath, Alice plunged the shard into the heart of the mirror. A haze poured forth, enveloping her in cold vapor. The familiar scent of cinnamon wafted through her memories. It was Ethan's favorite spice, a reminder of weekends spent baking in the warmth of her kitchen. "Ethan!" she shouted, the shard vibrating ominously as the mist thickened. "Help me find you. We can do this together." And then, through the haze, a figure appeared, a fleeting glimpse of a boy she once knew, wild curls, a contagious smile that lit up the darkness. "Alice!" His voice echoed, urgent and full of despair. "Don't!" The mist twisted violently around him, distorting his image. "You need to face them, face what you've done." "No. I want to lose you. Not again." The words tore at her throat, hot and raw. But the shadows retaliated, the room convulsing as echoes of past mistakes crushed in from all sides, a cacophony of voices calling her to account. "You abandoned him, stop playing with my mind." Alice yelled, her hands shaking as she desperately sifted through the memories of laughter shared and promises broken. Suddenly, the air thickened, deafening her with silence. The shadows recoiled, whispering hisses morphing into sharp gasps. "Face the truth, Alice. Only then will he be free." Alice inhaled sharply, the truth hitting her like a freight train. The choices she ignored sparked pain, but this was the only route for salvation. She had to strip down the past and meet it head-on. "Ethan, I'm so sorry," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't mean to. I was scared." With newfound clarity, she opened her heart wide, releasing the burden of shame. "I'll face everything." In that moment, the mirror burst. Light blinded her as the room imploded into fragments of brilliance. Another world was waiting for her, a darker version filled with twisted memories and chilling decisions. But what awaited her beyond? Did she have the strength to confront what lurked in the cracks of her soul? As clarity washed over her, she felt a hand, warm and reassuring, gripping hers. No more running, Alice. An unsettling chill swept through her. The truth was so close now. And yet, could confronting it lead to her salvation or her destruction? The shadows shrieked in protest, breaking through the blinding light. "Run!" With a scream of terror, Alice bolted forward, heart racing. What reality lay ahead, waiting to unveil her darkest self? Alice stumbled forward, the ground beneath her shifting like wet clay, pulsing with a life of its own. Instinctively, she gripped the shard tighter, its cold metal pricking her palm, a tangible reminder of her mission. The blinding brightness gave way to a dim, oppressive atmosphere, swallowing her whole. Shadows loomed closer, stretching and curling like fingers, their edges frayed and dark. Faces flickered in and out of view, contorted with anguish and rage, as if stealing glimpses of her fear. "You shouldn't have come here," wailed a voice soft yet chilling, echoing through the suffocating gloom. "You wanted the truth? Look around you." She squinted, forcing her vision to adjust. The decaying remnants of a forgotten world materialized before her, crumbling buildings cloaked in darkness, streets littered with echoes of laughter turned to screams, and shadows of people trapped in their own nightmares. An overwhelming sense of dread seeped into her bones. "Ethan!" she cried out, her voice trembling on the edge of desperation. "Where are you?" The silence that followed was deafening, the only response a low, mocking cackle from the shadows. "Did you really think you could save him?" Another voice sneered. It was chillingly familiar, twisting her stomach into knots. "You thought hiding from the truth would keep him safe? You left him." With each word, tendrils of darkness curled more tightly around her, tightening like a noose. Panic surged through her veins, and for a moment, she wanted to turn back, flee from this place. But she remembered Ethan's eyes, his plea for her to confront her past. "No!" she shouted, shaking her head, fighting the oppressive grip around her. Daring herself, she pressed the shard against the shadows swirling near her. A jolt of energy shot through her, sending echoes of memories crashing into her mind, fragments of laughter, the joy of baking, the warmth of hugs, and the icy touch of abandonment. Each recollection clawed at her heart, threatening to consume her. Suddenly, she was enveloped in chaos. A storm of memories bombarded her. She stumbled back, gasping, seeing Ethan standing at the edge of her vision, a flicker of hope in the dark. "Alice!" he called, his voice strained but alive. But as she reached for him, the shadows lunged, hungry and furious. "You can't save him!" they howled, their deafening cries reverberating like thunder. Alice felt icy fingers pull at her ankles, trying to drag her into the abyss. "You shall suffer as he did." "No!" She refused to sink into despair. With sheer determination, she raised the shard higher, its surface shimmering. "If I can face my mistakes, I can save him." A blinding flash erupted from the shard, illuminating the shadows momentarily. The dark tendrils recoiled, shrieking in protest. For an instant, Alice could see their twisted forms, terrified of the light, their faces frozen in rage and bitterness. "Keep going!" Ethan's voice urged her, stronger now, more present. "Don't give up." With renewed strength, Alice surged forward, empowered by her longing to reach him. But the path ahead morphed into a labyrinth, twisting at every turn. Images distorted around her, fragments of her past tormented her. Questions swirled: who had she truly abandoned? Could the echoes of her guilt bring peace? Then she spotted a flicker of light beyond the shadows, pulsating with warmth. Was it a way out? Or a trap laid for her? "Ethan, I'm coming!" she shouted, fighting back the despair that clawed at her heart. She moved desperately toward the light, but as she drew closer, terror dripped into her resolve, threatening to drown the flicker of hope. The shadows howled in fury, manifesting into ghostly forms, the faces of her past creeping out of the walls. "Face us!" they screamed. Alice hesitated, heart pounding. Was this light salvation, or another cruel illusion? "Don't look away." Ethan's voice sliced through the chaos, decisive and filled with conviction. With determination coursing through her veins, she plunged into the blinding light to confront her greatest fears, not knowing what awaited her. Beyond the threshold, she whispered a silent prayer, feeling the pulse of the universe around her. Was this the moment she'd been waiting for, or the beginning of her descent into eternal darkness? As the light enveloped her, Alice felt an icy grip close around her heart. Would she find Ethan or lose everything? Alice was swallowed by the light, the sensation wrapping around her like a cold blanket. She gasped, the air thick and heavy, electricity crackling at her fingertips. In that blinding radiance, shrieks of the shadows faded to whispers, but anxiety nestled deep in her chest. What lay beyond? When the brilliance finally subsided, she found herself standing on a desolate street, an echo of where she began. The familiar town buzzed around her, but everything felt off. The laughter was distant, like the memories of a dream she could no longer grasp. Shadows still flickered at the edges, even the buildings seemed to tower higher, as if sneering down at her. "Ethan!" she shouted, hoping her voice would pierce this thick veil of dread. Her pulse pounded in her ears. Here a faint voice responded, barely above a whisper. It was him, but it slipped away like smoke before she could grasp it. She began to walk, determination staking her steps. Each one drew her deeper into the surreal landscape where reality twisted into nightmarish shapes. The lampposts bent almost imperceptibly, the streetlights flickered uncertainly, and the sky hung thick with murky clouds. Was she in hell? Then, she noticed them, the faces. People moving past her with hollow eyes, their expressions vacant yet filled with unutterable sorrow. She dared not look directly at them. To meet those hollow gazes was to confront the darkness within herself. Alice, another whisper snaked through the air. This one was close, a familiar caress of hope wrapped in despair. "Ethan!" Without thinking, she dashed toward the sound, weaving through the faceless crowds. Everyone around her seemed oblivious to her existence, caught in their haze, lost in their own cursed realities. "Ethan!" she cried again, desperation clawing at her throat. "I'm here. Where are you?" As she tore down the street, the siren song of his voice led her to a crumbling doorway. Ancient bricks swept moss, obscuring a grand arch beneath, shrouded in ivy. She hesitated, heart racing, memories flooding back in rapid waves, laughter, warmth, fear. She squeezed the shard in her palm tighter, feeling the unyielding metal bite into her skin. "Please," she whispered, more to herself than to the universe. "Let me find him." Pushing the door open, echoes filled the air with a hollow ring. Dust motes danced in the dim light that filtered through broken windows. Shadows pooled in the corners, shifting with a mind of their own, like countless eyes watching her, waiting to pounce. "Asking for forgiveness isn't enough, Alice," a voice rasped, familiar and menacing. It chilled her, resonating through her skull. She spun, clutching the shard. There before her loomed a figure draped in layers of darkness, its form shifting like turbulent waves. The resemblance was terrifying. "Leave him alone!" Alice screamed. Every part of her screamed for an escape, her heart pounding like a drum. "You're the reason he suffers," the figure taunted, its voice both her own and a mockery of it. "You chose to forget. To abandon." Memories assaulted her, the weight of guilt pinned her to the spot. The rooms of her mind erupted with shadows, each one displaying a moment of betrayal. She felt the hard truth hardening her resolve. "No! I can't let this consume me." "Can't you? You were always weak," the figure sneered. "Face your fears or drown in the lies." As the darkness swirled around her, tendrils licked at her ankles again, even as she fought to hold on to the light within her. "Ethan!" she shouted again, her voice a beacon against the growing despair. But as the darkness converged, something bloody and red flickered in the distance. A crimson glow rippled through the shadows, beckoning her with a deadly allure. Was it hope, or another trap? The figure intensified its assault, taunting her. You'll never reach him. You'll always be lost. Gritting her teeth, Alice focused on the flicker, each heartbeat echoing with resolve. She would not be consumed again. With a surge of adrenaline, she bolted toward the red glow, tearing through the malevolent shadows. Yet, with each frantic step, doubt whispered at the corners of her mind. What lay waiting was unknown. Was she running into freedom or deeper into despair? The only certainty was the echo of Ethan's name, a haunting reminder that time was running out. Would the light illuminate their path, or lead her further into darkness? Alice fled toward the flickering red glow, every step fueled by desperation. The shadows roared behind her, angry at her defiance, their jagged edges slashing at her heels. She could feel the cold air wrapping around her, threatening to pull her into the darkness from which she had only just escaped. Ethan! She shouted again, her voice tearing through the silence. Her heart raced, each beat echoing the urgency of the moment. The glow pulsed, bathing her in warmth amid the chilling void, promising hope. As she approached, the scene shifted before her, a vision unfurling like a nightmare made real. There, standing within an eerie crimson light, was Ethan. His small figure trembled, ensnared in thick tendrils of shadow that fought to consume him. "Mom!" he cried, eyes wide with fear. His voice washed over her, a tidal wave of pure anguish that pressed into her chest. "No! I'm coming!" Alice yelled, determination surging within her. With a might she didn't know she possessed, she sprinted forward. The darkness lashed out, the shadows screeching as they engulfed her legs, but she pushed through, propelled by the love she felt for her son. The shard in her hand vibrated with an energy she could barely contain. She forced her will into it, feeling its power turn solid and fierce as she plunged through the grasping darkness. "You won, take him!" she screamed, brandishing it like a sword, the reflective surface glinting ominously. As if responding to her courage, the crimson light exploded in brilliant intensity, illuminating every corner of the room. The oppressive shadows shrieked, swirling into chaotic forms, their grip on Ethan loosening. "Ethan! Hold on!" she urged, reaching toward him. He was so close, yet the space between them felt like an insurmountable vastness. "Mom, help me!" His voice trembled, filled with terror, and with it came a surge of strength from Alice. She believed fiercely that she could retrieve him. Her heartbeat quickened as she closed her eyes for a moment, remembering the laughter, the warmth of their time together. It lit a fierce blaze within her. Rule 7, only the truth will set you free, echoed in her mind, resonating like a battle cry. The truth was stark, stripping away layers of guilt and despair. No more hiding, she needed to confront every choice that brought her here. "I made mistakes," she hollered into the shadows, her proclamation sending ripples through the darkness. "But I will not abandon him again." In that moment, the mirror shard erupted with blinding light, casting long shadows that snapped and recoiled in fear. The shadowy figure that tormented her transformed, twisting in agony as Alice locked into it, searching for the truth buried beneath the darkness. Minutes felt like lifetimes as she fought to face it. "I was scared, and I let that fear drive a wedge between us. I chose to turn away." The shadows surged, snapping at her, but the truth now burned brightly in her heart. "But not anymore. I choose to confront you. To face the consequences." In that instant of clarity, the room erupted in brilliant white light, burning through every shadow as it devoured the darkness hungry for despair. Alice charged toward Ethan, breaking through to him, reaching out to grip his trembling hands. "Mother," he whispered, fear evident in his eyes. "You came for me." "Always," she vowed fiercely, pulling him into her embrace, warmth flooding between them as a cascade of light enveloped their bond. The shadows melted into nothing, evaporating in the brilliance of the truth they shared, their love. Suddenly, the space shifted again, this time gently, not aggressively twisting or threatening. They stood in the familiar living room of their home, the sunlight streaming through the window, illuminating everything like a dawning promise. Alice squeezed Ethan tightly, relief washing over her like a cleansing tide. "Alice?" His small voice trembled as he pulled back slightly, looking into her eyes. Did we really escape? Yes. We did. She gasped, hardly believing it herself, but knowing deep within that it was true. We faced it together and we chose love over fear. The weight of the sinister rules faded, replaced by lightness that filled her heart. She knew they would never forget what they had confronted. The truth would always be there, but it would no longer haunt them. Shadows had receded, but the memories they remained, offering lessons of resilience, compassion, and the unbreakable bond of family. In the end, Alice had emerged not just as a mother trying to save her child, but as a woman who dared to face her fears. "Mom," Ethan said softly, "you're my hero." She laughed, wiping the tears from her eyes. "No, sweetheart. We're heroes together." As the warmth wrapped around them, Alice realized that even in a world where darkness lurked at every corner, love would always be the brightest light guiding their way home. And that was the moment Alice understood the real rules of survival weren't just sinister quotes from a cursed book but the power of connection, love, and the courage to face her truth head-on. Now, dear readers, this is your moment. If you loved this conclusion, you need to subscribe now. Don't miss exclusive stories like this. Smash the like button to show your support. Seriously, you're helping spread the word. And I want to hear from you. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories. What do you think about Alice's journey? Lastly, don't wait even one more second to share this with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let us spark conversations about love and courage. You are the heart of this community. Thank you for being a part of our story.